everyone, and welcome to my video. In this video I want to talk about the difference between ATP, GTP, ADP, and I'll also explain what is ATP, what is GTP, what is ADP, and the process and kind of a mechanism behind them. And besides that, I'll show one analogy which should help your understanding. So let's start from what is ATP. So what is ATP? ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, and it's basically the energy currency of all of the cells. So every time your body moves, breathes, or thinks, you use ATP. And not only us humans or animals just use it, also bacteria, trees, fungi, and all of the cells alive use ATP as energy source. So now cells use ATP by breaking one of the phosphate groups, which release energy. So ATP turns from high energy state to its lower energy state, which is ADP. So now you might be asking, why is it called an adenosine triphosphate? So the reason is that ATP has adenine nitrogenous base, and it has ribose sugar and 3 phosphate groups. So 1, 2, 3 phosphate groups. And I want you to think of the phosphate groups as a chunk of the energy. So I want you to imagine a kind of a pole right now, and there is kind of a box on the pole, and there are 3 tubes connected into the pole, and so the tubes are attached, and on each of the tubes there's bowling balls. So imagine of it as 3 bowling balls, and this is the base of this is the ground, let's say. This is the base of the box. So right now, when we have 3 bowling balls attached to the sticks, the weight of the bowling ball will drag the sticks down. So if you imagine that there's heavy weight dragging down the sticks, so it will have a lot of energy, and all of a sudden, let's imagine that we are removing that energy. So let's say we are removing one of the balls, and what we'll get is that, let me swipe it down. So what we'll get is that we have 2 balls left, bowling balls, and the pole, and the stick. So the stick will be swinging up and down. So the stick will be swinging up and down because the released bowling ball had a lot of weight, and it was pulling the stick down. So it was pulling the stick down. But now that the ball is released, the stick has a lot of energy. That's why it's swinging up and down. And this is an example of how ATP can be thought of as an energy source. So I want you to imagine of these balls as phosphate groups, P and P, and they have a lot of energy. And now I'll explain chemical background, what's happening, what's going on. And let me just erase it really quickly. So I said that ATP is high energy, right? So ATP has a lot of energy, and how's that energy is used? So to use the energy, we add the water molecule, and this process is called hydrolysis. And when we add the water to the ATP, we'll get ADP plus phosphate group, and we'll get energy. Since one of the phosphate groups are released, a lot of energy is released with that. And conversely, when organism has a lot of energy, it wants to save its energy. So it saves it in the form of ATP. Let me remove this really quick. So organism consumed a lot of energy as ADP, and when it wants to turn ATP into the ATP, we need a lot of energy for that. So energy and phosphate group. So phosphate group. We need a phosphate group, we need ATP, and we need a lot of energy. And by doing that, we'll get back to the ATP. So organism can store ATP more for further expenses. So to use it in the future. And during this process of regeneration, water molecule should be released out. So we lose water molecule. Now let's write the chemical equation of this. I'll just erase what's written here to make a bit more space. So in the beginning we have ATP, then we add a water molecule to it, and we get ADP plus phosphate group, which is released by the release of energy, and essentially we get energy. So the organism can spend the released energy from the ATP and use it for its own expenses, such as protein synthesis and many other actions. And to restore the ATP back, we need ADP molecule plus phosphate group and plus energy. And we will get ATP and in the process, hydrogen water molecule will be released. Water molecule will be released. So yeah, this is, I think, all you need to know about the difference between ATP, ADP, and when it's used. Oh, and one more thing to mention is that what is endergonic and what is exergonic reactions. Let me just really quick delete. An endergonic reaction is the reaction that consumes energy. So consumes energy. Example of this can be AGP into the ATP. So to make ATP from the ADP, we need energy. And this kind of reactions are called endergonic reactions. And now let's talk about exergonic reactions. And an exergonic reaction is that a reaction that releases energy. Exergonic reaction. This is about reactions that release energy. An example of that can be ATP into the ADP conversion. This is called exergonic reaction because in this process we release energy so that we can use it. Now I already prepared the slide for ATP. So the difference between ATP and GTP is that they have different nitrogen spaces. So in the case of ATP has adenine as a nitrogen space. So ATP has adenine. And in case of GTP has guanine. And that's the only structural difference between ATP and GTP. So the only difference is that GTP has guanine as a nitrogen space and ATP has adenine as a nitrogen space. Well, in functionality, they differ in some aspects, but they both provide energy. Now, granted that they will provide energy for different purposes. So, for example, GTP is, for example, used in the processes such as G protein coupled reactions. So it's in the signal transduction. GTP is used in signal transduction, and GTP is also used in many other areas and it has many other functions. Similarly, ATP is used to provide energy. And that's it for my video. And thank you for watching. And if this video was helpful, I will appreciate very much if you like the video and subscribe. And in the comment sections, you can write what concepts you are unfamiliar or you want me to explain it, and I'll do my best. Thank you.